company that I think
Corbin,
I have good feelings about. So.
Corbin, kick him off. Kick him off. He's done. Levi, you're next. What do you do, man? Tell me about it.
So I'm Levi, and I've been in the animation industry for about 10 years. I've worked on TV shows, commercials, VR, AR, and some significant shows that I've worked on in the past have been Penguins of Madagascar, the TV show. I've worked on webisodes for Star Wars Lego, and I've done a few Lucky Charms animation commercials. So.
There you go. I've eaten a few Lucky Charms, so I think we're even. We had you on a while ago, yeah? We had you on a couple. Yes.
Yep.
I am not crazy, at least not for that reason. All right. And Mike, I know that you have an illustrious career going. Tell me a little bit about Pipsqueak Animation.
Gosh, well, not in comparison to Mark's resume, but I started my career at Disney Feature Animation. I was there for about 12 years. I was making short films on the side, and they eventually got good enough that I was able to leave and start a kind of professional directing career. And then as I sort of often tell people, I started selling some projects, and they gave us the money, and we ended up making the first one sort of in-house. I decided to not outsource it and buy some computers and software, and we did that, and people started coming to us. We started selling more things, and one day I woke up and I was like, I guess I have an animation studio. So we do a combination of work for hire and original content. Clients include DreamWorks TV, Cartoon Network, Netflix, Comedy Central, MTV, and then American Airlines, all kinds of things. So original content and work for hire, and been doing this for not as long as Mark, but.
No, that's awesome. Yeah, so that's a lot of stuff I like and have probably seen. That's great. Rachel, I think you are next. Tell me.
Hey everyone, so my name is Rachel J Schultz, and I've been in the animation industry for about 3.5 years, so a little less than some of the people up here, but it's super awesome to be able to be part of this panel. Currently, I've been working in TV and the gaming industry, and I have a lot of work that's been on Netflix and Nickelodeon, and have worked on some AAA games as well. But currently, I'm an animation supervising artist at DreamWorks TV.
Gotcha. Beautiful. All right. And Kane, how you say your real name, Kane?
Yeah, it's Hago Kanebohazian.
Okay, cool.
My Kane. Yeah, I've been creating animations for about 23 years or so. Began my career doing commercials for TV, things for Taco Bell and local stuff. Went into video games, worked on some games like X-Men Legends, Chronicles of Riddick, and then for the past 15 years, I've been doing pharmaceutical and scientific animation. I head up an animation team at a company in San Francisco called Visera. And yeah, we work with the top pharma companies around the world. And on my free time, I write children's books.
Nice. Yeah, good. I'll bet, there's a lot of money in the pharmaceutical industry. That probably has a slightly different career path than some of the other stuff where people are doing it for other reasons, I would imagine. That's great. Jade, do you have the questions in front of you? Do you want to get us started here?
I think you said questions because
I did.
It cut out for one moment.
Oh, sorry.
But yeah, no, I would love to know how do you handle clients who ask how much to animate a 30-second commercial with no other info?
I cry.
Yeah. And it can span to other, whatever you guys work on. You know, it's the idea of like, how much is 30 seconds? And you're like where do you start with that question?
I always start by asking for more information. I mean, no one like voluntarily starts with offering up everything that you need in order to be able to bid something out. And so it's a combination of asking questions that will allow you to sort of price things. And part of that is, what are their references? Like what quality level are they trying to hit? Is it going to be a 2D spot? Is it going to be a 3D spot?
They want Disney quality. I mean, that's just, we always hear that.
Is that the words that they always use within the industry?
Always.
Disney quality? Yeah, exactly.
And then you want to push back. So there's quality. There's how many sets of notes. What's their process going to be? What are their expectations for process, and schedule? And then you're always pushing back and asking them what their budget is, because that'll sort of help scope you in terms of where you should be coming in. I mean, for a variety of reasons. One, I think this industry, my experience is that you can do animation for a whole variety of price points, and if you do all of them at the lowest end, you're not going to make a living, and you're not going to be able to pay the people that are working for you a living. And so,
who needs breakfast?
Yeah, right. Well, maybe you're only going to be eating those Lucky Charms, that Levi has animated. So I think it's like you want to scope things so that you can make a sort of accurate bid and a place to start. And it's also a place to start weeding people out, because as Mark said, I mean, I'm sure that we've all had people call us and go, give the Disney reference, or I've definitely had like the Star Wars reference. Someone's looking for visual effects. We want it to be like Star Wars quality. And then you ask what their budget is, and they'll, $1,000.
Yeah.
You're like, okay, well, we can cut this conversation off pretty quickly.
I think it's also about understanding the industry. Every industry is different, so you really have to understand what is comparable in that industry. So 30 seconds of animation in feature film is not the same as 30 seconds in television. It's not the same as a commercial or pharmaceutical or anything else. So start there.
But it doesn't mean anything without the details. I mean, the question is irrelevant, because without the script, storyboards, and director's notes and a comparative sample of what they want it to look like, it doesn't mean anything. I mean, one of the first things I always get into with clients is I do ask for budget, and once I see the storyboards or we talk a little bit about it, they never want to say what it is. So then I say, all right, do you have $500,000 or you have $500, $50,000, or $150,000? And they go, oh, it can range that much. Well, yeah, well, we want it under $5. It's like, great, go talk to somebody else. Like like Mike said, you can cut it off very quickly if they don't have enough money. They don't want to tell you until you give them a range. And then they'll say, oh, it falls within this area. So at least narrows it down.
Sure.
But then I get into I started in construction before I moved out to LA. And so I always use building a house. Well, how much does it cost to build a house? Well, I don't know. It depends. How many bedrooms? How big is it? Do you want marble or linoleum? It's exactly the same thing with animation. Are we going to have shadows, effects? How many characters? What quality of motion are we doing? Stop motion, CG, 2D, a mix? All those different things. How many characters do we have to design? How many backgrounds are there going to be? We have to go through all of that, because, anyone who says, well, I was told that it's $1,000 a minute for animation, like, not by anyone who knows what they're doing, you haven't. Or it's an Indian studio who, they have people.
It's done a different way.
Pay.
Yes.
Yeah, it's just not the same, and you just can't work that way.
Sure.
Use a car comparison. Is it a Tesla? Is it a Lexus? Is it a Ferrari? Like, they're all cars, but
That's what we often lean on, because it's so obvious. How much is a car? Well, what does that mean? Is it used? Is it 10 years old? Is it a piece of trash? Or is it, like you said, a brand new Ferrari or whatever?
I actually like to compare it. I like those comparisons that Kane and Mark just said. I often find like people from, producers are from more of like live action background. I try to like tie it back to, how they would think about budgeting a live action shoot. And I try to find to me, I think there's like an 80% overlap between like animation and animation process and live action. And so I try to like draw, and people invariably come in and they either, they don't know, they legitimately don't know, or they act like they don't know. And I try to really draw those comparisons. And the same way, and I'm like, well, is this the, independent, one location cabin in the woods, or is this going to be Titanic on the ocean with crowds and I sort of like list the things that for them they know would be expensive, and I try to sort of liken what we go through to what they would go through as they sort of figure out how much their TV shows or movies would cost.
Yeah, absolutely. And sometimes you have to educate your client. I mean, that's part of our job, honestly, in just about anything we do, is letting them know sort of what their sandbox would be given any basic budget limitations. And, get them started from there, because like you said, they don't know how much animation costs. They might have heard some really misleading numbers in the past, and so that's our job, is to like lead them to where we can work together. We can actually get something accomplished.
And one of the things that's really hurt our industry is people who leave a big studio and work as an independent and don't understand that your budget has to include potential overages and electricity and rent. So what they're charging is something you can't make a living on, but then it trains clients to expect 1/10 of what it should actually cost. So independents who don't understand true cost hurt everybody.
Yeah, because they're robbing Peter to pay Paul. It's today, they might not have anything budgeted for backup or upgrades to their software or new hardware or any of those things, and so it's only going to be sustainable for a couple of years, and then the client might want to come back and be like, hey, I want to update that version, and they're like, out of business, or they don't do that anymore. They don't have that stuff sitting around or any of that. There's a lot of hidden costs from the consumer's end, from the whoever is contracting you out to do that they just don't realize what our overhead is or what your guys' overhead would be. Yeah, quite interesting. DJ or Levi, I feel like we've covered this fairly well, but or Rachel, any other input?
I would just piggyback kind of on what was already said. I spent 7 years as a creative director at a major tech company where on my floor, I was the only person that wasn't an engineer doing code, doing that kind of stuff. So when people would come to me, it was, the education was the big thing. I mean, imagine if you stopped, to bring it up yet another metaphor to it, you stopped at a place on the side of the road that said restaurant. Sure. And, you'd go in and you'd say like, how much is food? What is food? You wouldn't have the information to like tell them that you want like, a cheesesteak or whatever you want. But that was kind of the situation that we had, was they knew that they needed a video or a animation or whatever it may be to put together. But they just lacked the background and that understanding to be able to actually make it. And so that was where we would step in. And we found the more that we focused on education, like the easier it was to kind of convert clients into good clients, so that they weren't kind of underbidding, so that they knew next time around what to kind of expect.
Yeah, I was gonna say another strategy that I have is to try to get them to understand that, you could go to an Indian studio or wherever and maybe get a bid that is lower, but you're not going to get the service. And so one of the things that we sort of try to do is to say, hey, look, we'll work with your budget. I mean, again, there needs to be a minimum that we can do anything with, but a better way of thinking about our services as sort of like more of a boutique studio is we will help you figure out the best way of spending that money, so that you can get as much on the screen as possible, but it's realistic. Like we can actually pay people, reasonably. And again, for the right client, that actually is a selling point. Like they actually, if you come in and you don't know animation, and there's all these knobs that we can tune on the animation side, and some things that might be like really valuable, like for us creatively, like maybe we're like motion sensitive, and so like animation is super critical. But maybe for the client, they don't really care about that. What they really are interested in is like the overall like visual complexity of the frames, and they don't really care so much about movement. Well, if we know that, then we can sort of help guide them to what would be an art direction style that would give them what they want, but allow us to sort of work it so that, again, like it'll come in under whatever budget cap we've agreed to.
Yeah, we've kind of backed into budgets at times too, where, if they've got something, I'll say, all right, let us design something that works. Instead of you telling us what you want visually, you tell me what you've got, and I'll tell you what we can design to fit that budget. And quite often that's worked, and we've sold clients that way.
Yeah, that's nice. That's almost all of what we do.
Do you guys have any workarounds for educating them? Do you ever send them to watch other videos, or do you have a white sheet of stuff like that? What's the best way to get them on the same page with you guys?
I send them samples of a lot of different styles, and for a long time I had a sheet that had a single image of lots of different styles of animation, so they could look through. Oh yeah, well we want something that kind of looks like this, or or something like that. And that at least helps, because you have to kind of guide and narrow down what direction before you can even start the conversation.
I was at Home Depot today and doing something else, but there's 50 different types of light switches. and they range in price. It's like something, and that's a level 0.01 complexity compared to this is like a level 1,000 complexity. So yeah, I mean, I think people understand that there's going to be a difference, but you really need to enumerate that.
I also wanted to say when I do freelancing, I just ask the client, what do you define animation as? Because you could say yes to an animation project and not understand that you have to create the assets and like actually create the movement and then do the lighting and the rendering when they think that all of that is just animation, when animation is just creating the movement. And so you really just need to understand what they define as animation.
That's a great point. Yeah, because there's a lot of interchangeable words, I'm sure. And so like DJ, you do maybe more graphic design than some of the other people here. That's a guess. But when do you get in that conversation? Like they're like, well, I want a lower third animation. And you're like, yeah, but that's actually like graphic design with motion graphics. Like when do you have those discussions, or what does that discussion entail?
So my approach to kind of educating the client was, I've always kind of included it as part of my marketing. So I actually have an infographic. I have different pieces that I've put together that kind of walk through my process. Because my concern is if I start bringing in pieces that other people have done, that, they might ask for something that, it's not really, 100% what I do. And all of a sudden I'm dancing around and, cell animation. And that's just not my jam. So I actually created like a video, an infographic that kind of goes over not just, the different styles and like kind of breaks out the different techniques, and it's just a little 2-3 minute piece that breaks that out, but also talks about like, what's the workflow going to be? What can you expect from me throughout the process? And that was something that I picked up for, we did that at the tech company that I worked with, just because it made it easier when we were getting requests to be able to send this out. And, this was this kind of, it was how to work with us 101, what we expect from you, what to expect from us. And just, it kind of greased the wheels so that things moved along in a much better way, because there was that kind of, since it was motion design, there was, so you do graphic design, but you animate, and it was very clearly codifying what we do, and it felt tailored to us, and it was a nice vibe.
Yeah, that's great. We, freshman year in film school, we learned what a pan was, and a tilt, and a dolly, and a jib, and a truck. And I still to this day have just, like they're like, well, just pan up, and then I'm like, it grates in my head. It hurts my head a little bit, and I know what they mean. They're saying up. I understand it, but it still hurts me in my soul. I'm like, it's a tilt, damn it. It's a tilt. When you tilt up or down, it's a tilt. And I'm sure Mark has dealt with that a little bit while you're trying to
all the time, but it makes a difference, because a boom up is different than a tilt up, and you
100%.
You have to use the right terminology.
Yeah,
because in 2D animation, a pan is any movement because you're just working in 2D. That's
sure.
changing a little bit these days, just because now we can integrate 3D with so many different things. But yeah, it's those, and so yeah, even seasoned directors misuse pan.
I'm quite sure.
And I got to tell you, some people you would never think are still misusing that term.
Jargon is very important in a working relationship, and even on color, even on mutes, sound, any of those things, because you can misuse those words. And so, like as a client, I think it's important for you to educate yourself on just the nomenclature, and as one of us, like we need to be consistent in what we say, so that we're not dancing around it too much.
It's something that I just thought of that a bunch of you have probably dealt with. They're also really paying attention to the fine print in your contracts. Last year or a couple of years ago, I was producing the open animation to a movie for Universal, and we agreed on the cost for creating the look, design, and final delivery. But then when I got the contract, they had a whole section on security. And they were dictating that we had to have key card entry into our studio and a certain number of security cameras pointed at certain directions. And I just called the exec. I said, "Oh, you're removing this entire section." He goes, "But it's a security issue. I don't care what it is. I'm not even considering doing this." I said, "You got $150,000. I said, "I'm going to charge you $250,000 just for that paragraph or that page if you want it. There's no need for it. Just remove it, or we don't have a deal anymore, and you're in a tight bind on schedule."
So you're down $150,000. Oh, okay, good. I was hoping
they just got rid of it. don't ever think that you can't change a contract. I've had Disney tell me Disney doesn't change contracts, which is bullshit. I've changed every Disney contract I've ever been sent. So, but you have to read the fine print or you can really get screwed.
Have you guys, this is sort of a different discussion maybe, but have you guys ever put something in a project that has a bunch of other animators on it or a bunch of other companies doing it, and then like your work gets mistaken for anyone else's work? Has that ever occurred? I know that happens in VFX a lot, where there's 50 VFX companies working on a project, on a movie, for example.
So sorry, what's the question though?
Basically, have you ever animated something that was part of a project that had other animation in it, and then like those other companies maybe didn't do what you would have done or didn't live up to your level of expectations, anything like that?
I mean, I don't know. Yeah, sure. I don't know. Personally, we've worked on other things, but generally I've been pretty happy with what other people's work was generally. And you can only affect what you can affect. I don't know. For me personally, I don't let that kind of stuff affect me one way or the other.
I don't think it's that big of a deal. I mean, you put your stuff on your demo reel, so that's really all that matters. I mean, I've been head of story on a lot of projects with a lot of story artists working under me, and each one did their thing. I'm still in charge of the whole thing, so I'm still responsible. But if someone says, "Oh, this was great," well, that was so and so, and it really doesn't go beyond that.
Gotcha. Cool. Jade, I think we're moving down the list here. I think we covered a lot of the stuff.
Oh yeah, no, and
Yeah.
I have a transition into it and something to perhaps add to in that I really appreciate the education conversation, because especially in my early-ish career, I've been on both sides in a deep appreciation for the animation and as a voiceover actress being paid to eat breakfast, and also having a nonprofit where I've worked with animators and companies and said, transparently speaking, I don't even know where to start with this budget. And I would love for any insight that you could provide for me so that I can respect and honor your work. So it makes a huge difference in just that transparent communication from the start. And so I've really enjoyed this myself. So speaking of early careers, how did you get started in animation, and do you remember your first animation job?
Mine has to do with sneaking into a place. When I first got started, I failed miserably at a test over Filmation Studios, and because of that, I ended up working in live action for a long, long time. And then digital ink and paint started happening, so I bought myself a digital ink and paint system and started just doing a bunch of demos, just to play with it and learn it myself. And then I ended up with a demo reel, and I had heard that Disney, or that a production company called Light Point Entertainment was moving into Disney down in Orlando, and they were a CG house. So I figured that they would end up needing 2D at some point, because most people don't understand the difference, clients. So I wanted to be their point source, but they hadn't opened up their offices yet, so there was no phone number. But I knew they were on the back lot at the Disney MGM Studios, what they called it at the time. So I called an animator friend of mine, Travis Blaze, who was working on the back lot. And I said, get me a pass in to see you, but I just need to sneak onto the back lot. And he said, why? I said, does it matter? He said, no. So he got me a pass. I snuck on. I just parked, and I just went into every building I could find on the back lot until I found this guy, the president of the company. And I asked if I could, I said, look, I'm not looking for a job, but I'm assuming you're going to need 2D animation at some point. I just want to be your source. You got a minute? Let me just show you my stuff. And so he opened the door, went back. I showed him what I was working, some of my work, and then he started showing me what they were working on. They were working on a piece for the upcoming Disney Cruise Line. The cruise line hadn't opened yet. And by the end of the conversation, I walked out with a contract to animate Tinkerbell to help launch the Disney Cruise Line. And that was my very first animation job.
Wow. That's some Steven Spielberg stuff right there. If you guys have heard his story about
Yes.
getting his own little office there on the lot. That's great. DJ, what about you?
Oh man, how can I follow that up? No. Yeah, so I guess mine also incorporates illicit activity, only in that I was at film school during like the old Napster days, and I was the only person at my film school that could liberate software, so to speak. So I became the only person on campus that could edit after the computer labs closed. And so I would edit and I would do the animations on everybody's film projects. From there, I started doing just local commercials, pawn shops, local car dealers, and that kind of stuff before I graduated. And for the longest time, I don't know what my first animation piece was, I suppose, only because for the longest time I figured I was an editor, and that's just what editors do. Was have all these cool tricks because it was part of this new vibe of editors that was going to have flashy stuff too. And then I realized that I wasn't an editor and I was actually an animator. And by that point, I had been doing it for 10 years. And so, I can't say what my first one was. Probably a local car commercial of some degree. It didn't launch any cruise line stuff. So.
I think it's important for people that are just starting to realize that you always have a chance to pivot, and what you thought that part of the production business was, whether it's post or pre or actual production, it might not be what you thought it was. And so there's always a chance for you to be actually, I don't even like being a director. I actually like being an AD. That's a way different job. When you don't know what the difference is, you don't realize that they're night and day opposite in a lot of ways. And so there's always time for you to change and get and specialize a little bit, because a lot of times people like people who are more specialized, not I can edit and direct and DP and I do all the things, which is some of the crap that I say sometimes. And it's because I'm not good at some of those things for sure. I'm sort of bad at some of them. Because I was going to say I definitely pivoted because my intent was to be on set.
And then through having the software that no one else had, I got pretty good at that. And and then realized that I don't like editing. That's just not my jam. I like to have fun and make stuff flashy. And, that was much more my vibes. And it was, I didn't really embrace that until probably 10 years ago. I mean, it was well into the career. So
interesting how DJ got his groove back. Levi, what do you got to say?
So for me, I graduated and I was living at home. My parents were allowing me to live at home for college. And I don't know, right after graduation, applied to maybe 20, 25 studios, both big and small. I was cool with whatever I was going to get, just get that foot in there. And a lot of time was going by, maybe about a couple months. And it was getting to the point where my dad was like, if you're going to live here, you're going to have to help start paying rent. And, he was driving me out to, minimum wage jobs like Dollar General and, going to get the application. I was like, oh my God, I got to go find an animation job. And I was shooting for the stars by that point. I was aiming for different countries. I was like, just anyone could take me. I'm cool, And finally, someone came back after about 2.5 months, and it was from New Zealand, and it was a startup animation studio called October Animation, and they had just signed a contract with Nickelodeon to be their farm studio to help work on a few of their CGI shows, which was going to be Penguins of Madagascar, Robot and Monster, Kung Fu Panda, and so on, so on. And so they were the only ones that accepted me. They were the only people that came back and we'll have you. So I had to go through another month of process to get the visa, get that going. I had $2,000, went over to New Zealand, 8,000 miles away, and started my career. So
there's no wrong way to do it. I think that's what it is. It's just trying where you can and fitting in whatever way is possible for you. We have some more questions here. I love that you guys are answering the questions on the Q&A. That's great. We'll continue with you guys answering the same one that we're already on. And we will be doing the giveaway here in about 15, 20 minutes. So stick around for that. $50, B&H. Everyone loves that. Mike.
So I have a weird background. I actually have a hardcore technology background. So I have undergraduate electrical and computer engineering degree. I have graduate degree in computer science. I never occurred to me growing up that you could have a career in animation. I'm not an artist by nature. And so, just nothing fit for me that the career that my sort of second career would even be a possibility. But my second job was at Disney Feature Animation. And while I started in the technology side over there and eventually was kind of moved over to production and was one of the supervisors on features, I started making these animated shorts. And I sort of sold Disney on the idea by making them training projects. And we initially did a training project for the technology group. And we basically said my pitch was, hey, look, we're going to work on this on the side. We want to use all of the infrastructure and pipeline that we use for our feature films. But production doesn't like technology because we don't understand the tools that we're making and how they're going to be used. So we will do that. We will put this extra time in and the back end will have like a little piece of animation to show. And that turned out to be really successful. And so successful that we finished the first one, took a long time, but I would say two things. I was not originally thinking I was going to do anything other than get it off the ground. And then when no one else stepped up, I was like, okay, I'll produce it. And then no one stepped up to direct it. And I'm like, all right, well, I'll direct it. And literally 2 weeks into that, I realized that I had made a big mistake and that what I really wanted to do, it sounds so trite, like I wanted to direct. So cut to 10 years later, I basically did a series of these over a course of 10 years. And I would work basically from 6 until 10 or 11 o'clock at night, 5 to sometimes 7 days a week. Eventually they just got good. I got an agent, and but it took a really long time. So I don't know, I left to get my first sort of professional thing at Comedy Central. I directed this series called The Adventures of Baxter McGuire, but I had been working for literally a decade before then, just trying to get good enough, I guess.
You were an overnight hero, right? An overnight sensation. That's how they always look at it. After 10 years of 70-hour weeks.
Yeah.
Rachel, we got to keep these short because we got more questions. So Rachel, tell me.
Sure. Well, I took more of a traditional route. I actually went to art school for animation. I always just loved drawing ever since I was a kid and loved theater. So I was like, oh, put those together and that's animation. So I'm like, okay, I'm gonna go be an animator. And I went to Savannah College of Art and Design in Georgia. And so I took their animation program there, but I did not receive a job for about probably 2 years after I graduated, which could be a really dark place for students right now when you're just graduating. The main thing that just kept me going was I was staying connected with people from school who had already gotten jobs and just kept asking for critique on my stuff and wasn't afraid to show my stuff to people and not isolating myself from the art community, so that I wasn't, totally in my head about it. So I landed my first animation job in Vancouver, Canada, and I worked on a TV series that was that's on Netflix right now. It's based on How to Train a Dragon. So I was a character animator for that. And another thing that I really think that for young animators, a great piece of advice would be not to put all of your worth into the art that you do, because it's a job and at the end of the day, and it can be, if you start mixing your worth and your identity in something that you're using for your job, that can be really hard to deal with. So just separating those two, it's okay. It's okay if you have a bad day, and it's okay if it's not working out with your art for one day. It's just a job.
Yeah, it's an interesting take. I always think about just how much goes into a movie, for example, and it's the writer, this is their whole dream for their entire life, and they spend probably hundreds, maybe 1,000 hours on the screenplay and went through all these revisions, and then it gets to the production company and the director and all these things, and there's hundreds of people on set, and just there's a million man hours in this thing, and then someone comes out of the theater and they're like, how was the movie? They're like, that sucked. And you're so much happened to let you think it sucked, and we can't take that personally a lot, especially if we're a small part of the part in a lot of ways. Yeah, but you want to also be able to sink what you care about into it. You want to be passionate about it, obviously. That's super important. So
Yes.
it's the double-edged sword of all time.
It's a hard balance.
Yeah. Hago, hit me up. Last one.
Yeah, no. My career started a while back and started with just doing stop motion animation and cutout animation. Big fan of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. So, I was and in high school, I actually got really into animation. This is early days of computers. So the only thing I had was a physics program. So I would use the physics program to create animations where I would simulate car crashes and people flying out of the windows. And that really, that kind of got me going, and I had to do computer animation. And fortunate enough that my cousin's friend's neighbor was a kid genius who was doing 3D animation in Lightwave. And this is like 1996, 95, 96. So right in high school, I was a senior. I actually interned with him. I was like, I want to do animation. Teach me animation. So he's like, sure, here, do some stuff. And I just would go to his office every day for about 6 months, doing whatever he told me to do with the animation and learn 3D programs, and started working on commercials and got a job there. And basically,
Nice. Rest is history. Yeah. That's good. Jay, I think we'll do the giveaway in just a couple minutes. There are some more questions in the Q&A. If we can do any of those, let's ask one of those real quick. Anonymous attendee, has anyone seen a good cheat sheet of animation terminology, let's say for producers or directors, so that they'll be speaking the same language? Sort of what we were talking about before. Any easy to grab thing with nomenclature on it?
Well, I know my book on how to produce independent animation had it, but that's out of print, so that won't really help.
That wasn't even a shameless plug, because it's not even, there's nothing to plug.
You can't get it.
Come on, Mark.
Several books out there.
eBay?
Well, look, it's on Amazon, but it's like $200, and that's, believe me, it's not worth.
Oh, it was a plug. Nice.
No, I don't get any money from the resales.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Kane, what were you going to say? What book, maybe?
I was just saying there's several books out there. If you just look for animation for producers.
Okay. Interesting.
Oh, producing animation is a really good one. It's a purple book. I'm trying to think of the two women wrote it. It's fantastic. So it really covers everything, including scheduling and budgeting.
Nice. If anyone knows the name of that, put that in.
Catherine Winder was one. Producing Animation by Catherine Winder.
Nice. Perfect. Jade, any more questions from the list?
Yes. We have, I would love to know if there's a favorite project or a least favorite project that anyone would want to talk about. Sharing.
Can just go real quick.
Levi, yeah.
Yeah, when I got onto Star Wars Lego, I was in heaven, and because TV, man, that stuff is so brutal. That the schedules, the way that goes, like it was an ongoing, rigorous schedule thing that I did not love in the end. And so when I got into Star Wars Lego, it was a lot smaller. It was like a group of 10 people. You can just kind of talk with people in the same room. And the projects were smaller, but the quality was higher. So you could put what felt like a lot more into it, like special effects and lighting, just up the quality than what I was seeing in TV. And so when I came in, I didn't start off on Star Wars Lego at first. It was like on Lego City stuff, but they soon found out that I had like a real interest in that stuff. And they're like, well, maybe we'll throw them some shots. And one of the supervisors threw me a lightsaber shot. And, you know, like this is 6-year-old me going, yes, thank you. And I did not screw up the opportunity, because I was like, I don't know if I'm going to get another lightsaber shot, but I put myself into it. Like I did reference for it. I thumbnailed for this sucker. Like I put everything into it, and it impressed everyone enough where they're like, give the lightsaber shots to Levi. And from that point on, for like a year or two, you know, I was in heaven doing lightsaber shots for Star Wars Lego, you know, little mini Yoda, mini Luke, little Darth Vader, like, so good. So
that's great. Anyone
Well,
else?
one of my favorites was when I first decided to go full time into storyboarding. I had been art directing at Nickelodeon for a number of years, and Spielberg moved into Orlando with Sequest. If any of you remember the old futuristic submarine series on NBC, and I figured, well, it's Spielberg, NBC, was the biggest budgeted show on TV at the time, and it was science fiction. Not one of those things is bad. So I wanted on that show so badly. And 15 minutes later, I had the gig, and it was the most fun and the best food and great I mean, it was literally everything. And I got my start on doing second unit direction on that show, my first season in. That was an absolute dream job.
That's cool. Yeah, and I think that's what we all have to keep in mind as we go through our lives in production or any sort of creative role. I think is that you're going to get ones that are sort of stinkers, and then you're going to get ones that are awesome, and you gotta hope you get more awesome ones. But it's no guarantee. But enjoy them while you're there, for sure. Because I think
my first movie was called Slave Girls from Beyond Infinity. It got better after that.
I think there's a fine line. I was gonna say, I think there's a fine line though, because like if you're going to, my experience is if you're going to have like a long career, Rachel sort of like hinted at it. You have to have, I call it like double think. Like this, I'm constantly practicing double think, where you're going to have different projects that are of, in this instance, different projects that you like more than others, but you need to find something that you do like about it. Again, the ones that are really horrible that you can't do, but most other ones, there's like sort of pros and cons. And I think the idea is to prevent yourself from getting jaded and to, allow yourself to sort of stay creatively motivated is to sort of like find the part of the project that you really do like and just concentrate on that. I mean, the negatives, they're always going to be there, but if you can sort of just kind of keep present the positive parts, I find that really helps me just stay present and like kind of do good work day in and day out. So like in terms of like my personal favorite, I mean, it's hard not to have like projects that you've like conceived yourself and then sold and then you get to make, like those are super fun. It's hard to say which one of mine. I'd probably say this small little project I did for DreamWorks TV called Fifi Cat Therapist was just super. It was just super fun. It was like we had a great small little writing team, and I just really liked everything about it. I think the episodes came out great, and they were fun. And they were kind of what I envisioned going in. So that'll probably be my favorite.
I guess my favorite. I can talk about my favorite and least favorite because it was the same project. Right before COVID, I was working on, so I had pitched similar to what Mike was saying, it was kind of my idea, pitched it, complete, blank slate kind of thing. And it was the keynote graphics for the HIMSS conference, which is this huge conference of like biotech, that kind of thing. 50,000 people come to it. And it was for the huge screens in the back. They were, 30 feet by 20 feet or whatever. I mean, they're huge. And we had this really cool, it looked like something almost out of kind of Prometheus, had this very like Ashthorpe vibe, really cool. And we were about 2/3 of the way through it when the entire world canceled everything. And HIMSS decided that they were too far into it to not have a video, but they would not need this video anymore. So we took this awesome, beautiful piece as it was coming along, and we turned it into a 16:9 web video.
Jeez.
And it just... it was. I mean, I understand what they did, and we were able to take it, put it together in a way that was still, it was pretty nice. But I mean, it was a 9:16. They did it vertically. You're saying, yeah, gotcha. Yeah. That's and rough, man. But it was supposed to be this huge wraparound for the for the ballroom. It was gonna be so nice.
Jeez, super rough.
Yeah.
I think that puts us to the trivia part. So load up your shoot stop video. Here is the question. Everyone get there. What we're going to do is you post in the chat the answer of whatever this question is. But go to shoot stop video, log in, make sure you are there because if you're not, then you won't know the answer. But you might be able to figure out the answer if you've ever seen this show before. Okay, so here we go. What did I, Justin, just post on the Shoots.video community wall? So go to the community wall and tell me what I posted. It's the thing that I talk about all the time.
What you had for breakfast?
No. Eggs. Because we got chickens. So we always have eggs.
We used to have chickens until the raccoons got them.
Oh no. Really? Jerks. Anyone? Here we go. All right. I'm going to defer to Blake on this one. I don't know. There we go. Okay. So, Mark Schultz answered madness. Mark, I don't know if that's a complete answer, Mark. It just says madness. And I don't know. You won like 3 times already. So we got to work that out. We also have Claire Van Fletteren, and Brick Madness is the answer. So yes, that's for people who don't know. Shameless plug. Here we go. Brick Madness is the movie that is currently on Amazon and has a little bit of animation in it. Some really intentionally terrible 80s style animation for one of the characters in his show. And so, yeah, that's the deal. That's the movie that we made. And it's about National Lego Tournament. So anyway, that's that. Claire's the winner. Love it. So fun. And thank you for going through Shoots.video. Please, now that you're there, add some stuff to the wall, watch other people's things, add comments, that sort of stuff. You know how walls work. You've been on Facebook before. Jade, do we have any other parting questions for these guys? We got a few minutes left. We should actually probably handle it was in the Q&A.
I was going to say we got a couple
more. Yeah, hit one of those up.
Let's see. I'm a corporate producer and my clients are starting to ask for more animation. Can you give me a better sense of what is 2D versus 3D versus motion graphics and any other forms that fall under the generic animation umbrella?
Big topic.
I can say that I've answered this question for the same people over and over again, and clients and just everybody. And it's never going to be answerable. There's no answer to this question. It's more about what is it that you want? Show me examples. Yeah, let's talk. It's a conversation, but to separate 2D and 3D it's almost impossible in the whole spectrum of things. Sure, you can say this is a 2D animation, but there might be 3D elements in the background. There might be 3D it's a very complex thing. And
2D that's rendered that for a lot of people looks 3D, or 3D that's flat shaded that looks 2D, and it's not the client's job or the producer's job, or there's a lot of people's job. It's not their job to understand how, maybe a producer, maybe how it's actually being made. It's about what do you want the final result to be, and let's figure out a way to get there. But how it's actually done, is it done in After Effects with a 3D plugin in After Effects? Is that 3D or is that 2D? It doesn't really matter.
Well, and describing it doesn't really help the situation, nor does describing it matter. So again, kind of like we were talking about at the beginning, it's show them samples, or if they show you a sample, you say, oh, that was done this way. So this is an option, or we could do something that looks similar by doing it this way. So it's got to be based on the visuals. If they're not looking at it and they don't understand the industry, it won't make a hill beans of difference what you say.
Well, and I think, sorry to cut you off, Mike, I don't think there's a way to describe that. You can't describe visuals because we all see things differently. Even saying well, it's red, I want a red color here. And you're like, what does it mean to you? Is that DJ's shirt? Is that Space Ace in the background? Is this what Rachel has in the background of hers? There's multiple, even something as simple as that. So you have to have something to actually say that thing. Sorry, Mike, go for it.
No, I was going to say, just sort of piggybacking on both what Kane and Mark said, is that it's a starting point when you have something concrete to look at. But then, like Kane said, it's a conversation, man. There's because they, sort of what you said, they might look at something and they're like, oh, I want it to be like this. But when you actually dig in, it's a small component of it. It might be I like the way the tail moved. That's the key thing that I'm keying in on. You don't see that being the the main thing, whereas someone else is like, no, it's like, the overall art direction. I like the color. I like that. I like the, the color palette. All that, the way it moved, I hate that. The character designs, I hate that. But man, I love the colors.
And you're going to end up wasting a lot of your time making something that they didn't actually want, but you thought that they wanted a lot, but it was just because you guys were talking about different stuff.
Yeah, my goal is to sort of like over communicate, and that might drive some producers away where they're just like, well, I don't have time, just go do it. And I'm always like, I don't want to take a job that I'm going to under deliver on. I'm just going to under deliver on that. They're going to get it, and then they're going to be like, well, that's not what I talked about. So for me personally, I want to talk to them a lot so that we're really on the same page and we're talking kind of throughout the process.
Excellent answers. We have one more question here. Sorry, never mind. Not that part. How does a COVID scenario change studio budgeting now that artists have more powerful computers and the studio itself has less expenses? Should the artists start charging more? How does that work? Do you guys have better stuff at home than they have, or more like better pipelines at least?
I actually wrote a big article on LinkedIn about this very thing, that studios need to change how they reimburse their artists, and artists need to understand that if they don't charge extra, they're funding the production company, which is not an employee's job. All of a sudden you're paying more for electricity, you're paying more for water, you're paying for upgrades, you're paying for desk use space that can't be used for something else. There's a tremendous amount of extra expenses that you take on if you used to work at a studio, but now the studio has you working from your house. So yeah, there are expenses that you absolutely deserve to get paid for. And if you don't understand that, you have to understand business. Everything we do is a business. Yeah, it's art, but it's also a business. And you have to protect yourself, or people and companies will take advantage of you.
I'm gonna give a slightly different perspective on that, which is I think it kind of depends on where you are in your career and what your goals are, et cetera. So I think it's different, like sort of like Rachel's sort of experience, that you come out of art school and it could take years to actually get your first position. I kind of give different advice to different people depending on where they are. I think getting those first couple of jobs it's super hard and it's super critical. And I don't think film schools and animation schools in general prepare folks very well for what it's like to be out in the job market and what they're up against with people who actually have been doing it for a few years. So I just think people need to sort of scale their expectations. Like, someone that is fresh out of school, they might have talent, right? But they might not really know how to use it efficiently. And so giving them work might take 5 times longer. I mean, all things considered, I'd rather pay 3 times more for the person that has 5 years experience, but get it 5 times faster, because it's ultimately going to be cheaper for me. And I just think it's there's not a one size fits all answer to that. I think it's people like Mark who've been doing this for a long time. Absolutely, you're like much more in the driver's seat, and I think it's just sort of a knob between where Mark is and then where people are who are just out of school, and just sort of like understanding where you fit and where you are and how everyone else is perceiving you. I think is helpful.
Yeah, I think you should just have a conversation with your coworkers and friends who are in the general same area as you in your career, and see what is happening with them at their studios, and just make sure that you're basically in the know, and that you know what's going on at different studios, and stay up to date so that you basically know which area you really are at. It is pretty unclear sometimes on what area you're at, because you grow and you grow out of things, and then you're in a new different level. So just keep in tune with the industry and your friends who are working in the same kind of area as you.
That brings up a good point on something else I just saw in a contract that I refused to sign, which is some studios are now putting in there that you may not discuss how much you make with any coworkers or anyone outside the industry, and you should also never ever sign that. You should also never sign a contract that says you won't speak badly about a project, because the only reason for that is to protect people who are doing bad things. Of course, we're not going to talk badly about it if we're not being treated badly. But if there's sexual assault, or if there's physical or bullying abuse, if they don't take care of it, of course we need to be able to speak out about it. And if you sign that contract, you can't. So the only way we know how much we should be charging is if we can talk openly with one another about how much we're getting paid. And companies are trying to keep us from doing that because it benefits them. But if all of us just decide, no, I'm never going to sign that, it takes everybody sticking to it. So I just take those pages out, and I don't sign them, and I never send them back. And I have yet to ever hear word one back from somebody. I've never even questioned about it.
That's really, really great advice. Yeah, I definitely am all for keeping it open about salary with friends.
Yeah. So read your contracts too. Read them, every line.
Yeah, it's a difficult thing. If you're just starting out, like we've had this discussion a few times already. If you're just starting out, like you don't have much leverage. If a grip comes to me, if a PA rather comes to me, and it's like his second day on set, I don't want to hear a bunch of demands from him, But if he's a gaffer and he's great, and I know he's great, then I'm much more willing to take those demands into consideration. So, these are all business decisions. And like Rachel said, you can't tie it to your own self-worth. You have to tie it to what's important about what you do outside of work and all those things. Hopefully it should be a way to enable the rest of your life to be awesome as it can be. Yeah. So, all right. We had a lovely discussion here, and we are out of time. So I think that's going to be that. For that, plug your stuff. I think everyone posted already in the chat. It seemed like everyone put that up there. If not, put that right now, all your info. And we always make the chat, the transcript available for everyone, so you can download that later. But Mark, give me a 15-second plug. Where do they find you?
At storyboards-east.com is everything about the storyboarding and animation that we work on, or marksimonbooks.com for all the books on the industry that I've written.
Beautiful. Love it. DJ.
I'm at DJ Summit on Instagram and Twitter. Summit Filmworks on Facebook. You can go to djsummit.com. Find me, reach out, let's chat.
Yeah. Levi.
You can find some animation reels on vimeo.com/LeviAmes. There you go.
Nice. Mike.
Pipsqueakanimation.com. If anyone needs anything, it's really easy to get in touch with us.
Very good. And Rachel.
RachelJ.com, and you can find me and some of my art on Rachel J Instagram. My Instagram handle is Rachel J.
Notice the spelling of the Rachel and the J. That's important in that transaction. Kane.
I guess go check out hiddengemsfilm.com.
Very nice. Love it. And you can find me on @JustinMakesMovies on Instagram, or my name on Facebook. And there's a link tree with Justin McLeese that will probably take you to all that stuff. So, Jade, you're last.
Yeah, jadezaroff.com. And then my Instagram is @jadezaroff. You can find me dancing in an Earth costume.
I love it. I'm going to add my link tree. Go watch Brick Madness if you like comedy or you like things that are good, because I made it and I think it's good. I tried really hard. So check it out on Amazon, or on you can buy it on brickmadness.com. You can buy actual DVDs and stuff. So cool. Thank you so much for being here. I had a great time learning about this stuff. This is one of my weak spots. I don't know that much about animation, to be honest. And so it was awesome. Go to shoots.video and make those, get the logins going. Get our community working for all these types of stuff so we can all get hired and do that good work. Talk to you guys soon. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for hosting, guys.
Yeah, thanks for having.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.